everyone. This is Geo, your host, and this is I'm scared. I'm adding a little bit more flair to that because that's exactly how it's supposed to sound. Sorry, it's been a while, and I did promise that we were going to break down Monster, the Ed Gein story. Episode per episode. I watched all of them. I binge watched them. It was freaking crazy to see exactly what was the inspiration to a lot of our great films. Psycho, Leatherface, even Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. We have. It's just crazy to see this. To see this perspective, and of course, we're getting the directors who did the Dahmer story, right? Or not? Yeah, Dahmer, and as well as the Menendez brothers, right? So this is his the third, um, I guess, sequence in the series of Monster, right? So let's go ahead and talk about Ed Gein. What did he do? Episode 1, Mother, right? And this goes perfectly well to Psycho, right? So let's go ahead and get to it. Let's hear that beautiful song of ours, and let's go.
If you are prone to scary easily, avoiding all the scary horror movies, you'll never watch but are intrigued to. Geo and Alex watch and review, so you don't have to. So you don't have to.
All right, we are here to discuss kind of a back of just another killer on the loose. I think that honestly, I need to research this, but I feel like the U.S. has had so many serial killers. I think more than anyone else, or more documented serial killers per se, right? This one comes out of a very remote location in Wisconsin. He obviously, Ed Gein, was growing up with a very domineering mother. And this mother, of course, made everything possible to shape him in isolation, with religion and caregivers' expectations, things like that. She always reminded him that no one would love him, would ever love him more than his mother, which obviously that is already bad. And then, it also, he had a lot of other things that were uh, that were kind of getting in, like some curiosities were coming in, but he was also being shamed because of that religious side of stuff, right? So the place in Wisconsin is Plainfield. This is a real place. So, we're going to be talking about Ed Gein, and after Ed Gein, you're going to be listening to It, right? Welcome to Derry. Derry is fictional, meaning it is not a real place. So if you go to Maine, you will drive and you won't be able to find it. But here, you can go to Plainfield, Wisconsin. Plainfield actually exists, right? So this helps us kind of start the basis of seeing his relationship with his mom, and also what ends up clicking in his head to go for the schizophrenia to take in, right? A lot of things were happening. This was post-war World II, right? This is after the war. A lot of people started being more fascinated about, not a lot of people, but some people were being more fascinated about the pictures of the corpses, that were found in these concentration camps, and he even got introduced into a what do you call it, a comic book that was created about this lady who was part of the Hitler regime, or part of the Nazi regime, who was very experimental and torturous to, unfortunately, the captures of the Jews, and created like lampshades and created things out of their skin. So everything basically that Ed Gein is going to get into was was opened up through this type of obsession of seeing these things. And he had obviously this girl, which becomes part of his not part of his killing, but she ends up getting him more interested into these type of things, right? But we see how, this, guy is trying to be himself, but also been isolated, and the mom's kind of controlling him. So you see that in the end, the mom ends up having a lot of she ends up having issues, and she ends up dying. And yes, spoiler alerts. I know you're not gonna watch this if you're listening to this, but if you're gonna watch it, the mom ends up having like a heart attack because they end up finding the brother, who gets killed by Ed, but Ed doesn't remember it because, again, like I said, his mind is already starting to switch on and off when it comes to reality, right? And he got mad at the brother because the brother was telling him the truth. The brother was like, "Hey, dude, mom is, she's domineering. She's crazy. You should escape like I'm going to because I'm leaving." And he just gets super angry because, hey, nobody says that about my mom, type of thing. And then, he clicks off, and then bam, kills his brother. Wakes up the next day, finds the brother, and freaks out about it, and then, hides it in a way where he's burning some grass and says, "Hey, look, my brother's here," or something, and they kind of there like that, right? The mom gets sick. She ends up dying, right? And she wasn't a nice lady anyway. Like, she was terrible and terrible with her kid, but she was the same with everyone else, right? She ends up dying, and he then ends up, you know, hearing her voice. Again, this is the schizophrenia kicking in. Back in those days, nobody knew exactly what it was, when did it kick in, things like that. So we were talking about like very early years of mental instability being even written down or diagnosed, right? And so as he's hearing his mom, who is no longer home, right, he goes and digs up a body, dresses up like the mom, puts her in a chair. And if you ever watch Psycho, that's exactly kind of the synopsis of that movie, right? There's women who are getting killed in Psycho, and maybe I'll watch that movie so we can talk about it. But they're getting killed by a woman. Nobody knows who's this woman. And then there's a big reveal at the end that it's just the son who hears the mom and dresses up like the mom, right? That Ed Gein was the inspiration for that. He inspired Alfred Hitchcock, who then created Psycho. So you're getting this beginning of how many later on, directors, writers of shows got inspiration of this, right? Uh, and my question to all this was like, why did we start the season here? Like, why are we starting with Psycho? Was it the first thing that came into mind, saying like, hey, he's off? Because it gets worse later on. But I think we start off here because we need to understand that before his obsession with all this, before that, the relationship he had with his mom was not the best. That relationship ended up screwing up a lot of his his like being able to socialize normally, right? Um, and so that then ended up giving him to a different type of obsession, right? That leads to him, you know, go opening up a door of something that we can't even still fathom to. And that's where we end off in this episode. All right? His he is now alone, mother dead, brother dead. We're going to see multiple times where he hears his mom still, right? Again, the schizophrenia in there, the voices in his head. Um, and he will constantly, we'll talk about it, but he constantly like tells people, "Oh, I'm taking care of mother," or "I'll see if mother approves." But again, mother is dead. That's just a cadaver that he has dressed up as mother, right? So we are now entering the beginning of this killer who inspired so many people. Now we've got the psycho part of it. In episode 2, we'll discuss a little bit more of how that really inspired Alfred Hitchcock to create the film that ended up being, if we watch it now, it's not as scary, right? But back in the days, horror films, horror movies weren't uh, what they are now. So Alfred Hitchcock really brought something new to people's eyes, which then opened a whole vast, majority of things that ended up now being what we see in horror, right? But other than that, I am babbling on. This was a really great episode, really great show. Not for the faint of heart. Again, it gets pretty graphic into like seeing how he, sews the bodies, he made chairs. So this is just a synopsis. I'm just giving you guys like a look of what we're gonna be talking about. But yep, episode 1, Mother. This is Ed Gein, the monster, the Ed Gein story. Crazy as heck for sure. And I will see you guys next time.
If you are prone to scary easily, avoiding all the scary horror movies, you'll never watch but are intrigued to. Geo and Alex watch and review, so you don't have